But we need to appreciate the importance of learning from one another as we are leading and following, as we are training and being trained, helping and being helped. Philippians 2:19-24 illustrates the kind of discipleship relationships that we should want to pursue that can help us know here's what to look for in those that we might mentor or those that we might be mentored by. Today we'll outline 5 descriptions of those relationships, 5 descriptions of those relationships that I pray will inform and encourage our involvement in them. And just to be clear, what are discipleship relationships? Well, they are relationships where we are learning, because a disciple is a learner. That's what the word means. And so we're all in that pursuit of progressive transformation, sanctification. And there's some sense then that mutual discipleship is always occurring, as we all teach and learn from one another as we walk together in the Christian life. And that mutual ministry is the first characteristic. The first characteristic to note as we look for in evaluating relationships. We can outline a first point like this. Point number 1, we should pursue discipleship relationships that are mutually ministry-minded. We want our current and our future pursuits to be wisely focused, for discipleship relationships to be mutually ministry-minded. And secondly, we can note that these discipleship relationships should be motivated by shepherding. They're not mainly about meeting physical needs or managing activities. The mutually ministry-mindedness modeled by Paul and Timothy is one that is motivated by shepherding. So point number 2, pursue discipleship relationships that are motivated by shepherding. Pursue discipleship relationships that are 1, mutually ministry-minded, and 2, motivated by shepherding. And then 3, similar to the second point, pursue discipleship relationships that are meekly serving Christ. That are meekly serving Christ. That is, following the example of Christ, valuing what Christ has modeled in Philippians 2:5-11. So here's the picture. If you want to be useful in ministry, if you want your life to matter, if you want to make an impact, make a difference eternally, then you need to learn to die to yourself. You need to learn to die yourself. We must grasp the meekness modeled by Christ and follow after it. Pursue discipleship relationships that are 1, mutually ministry-minded, 2, motivated by shepherding, 3, meekly serving Christ, and then 4th, that are modeling faithfulness. That are modeling faithfulness. Pursue discipleship relationships, number 4, that are modeling faithfulness. I mean, that seems obvious, but it's the obvious that we read in verse 22 about Timothy's proven faithfulness. Look there. Paul says, but you know of Timothy's proven worth, that he served with me in the furtherance of the gospel like a child serving his father. 5th point of communicating with them for the good of our relationships. Paul turns to that in verses 23 and 24. We'll get to the point after we read these verses again to see that he clarified his sending of Timothy. Look at verses 23 and 24 again. We want to pursue discipleship relationships that are 1, mutually ministry-minded, 2, motivated by shepherding, 3, meekly serving Christ, 4, modeling faithfulness, and 5, mindfully communicative. And also remind you that those are part of God's means. Those are part of God's plan, God's design, God's commands for our growth, for our fruitfulness, for our encouragement, for our protection in this life, walking with Christ to the end. And so I urge you, don't think they're optional. Don't think that connectedness is take it or leave it. And do not give up on such treasured friendships and partnerships and mentorships for God's glory. None of them will go perfect because none of us are perfect. But we can pursue them. And Philippians 2:19-24 gives some characteristics to help us do so with wisdom.